Alright, so we're at the bottom of page 62. And first thing, we're going to skip 18. And then we're also going to go out of order. We're going to do 16 last. So I'm going to start with 17 and 19 and 20. And then 16 is going to be the most complicated one. We're going to do that one last. And if it's too confusing or too frustrating for you, I apologize. I'm going to do my best. I definitely don't want anyone to get frustrated by this stuff. Alright, so let's start with number 17. So we've got three numbers here, and they're all negative. So let's think about it this way. If they're all negative, then I could put on my number line, I could put 0 right here. And now I'm thinking about which one would I come to first, and then second, and then third. If I get them on a number line, then it's pretty simple. I've got 2.3, 2.6, and then we learned from earlier, I can't remember what number it was, I think it was number 12, that this one's equal to negative 2.8. And if you don't remember that, you can go back to page 59 and look on your number line. 4/5 is equal to 0.8. So let's think about it this way. So we've got, let's call this negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. So if we're at negative 2, they're all negative 2, negative 2, negative 2, negative 2. Negative 2, negative 2.1, negative 2.2, negative 2.3, that would go first. Negative 2.4, negative 2.5, negative 2.6, negative 2.7, negative 2.8. So the one that's farthest to the left, we said, was negative 2.8. So that one would go first. And then the next one to the right would be negative 2.6. And then the last one would be negative 2.3. Now I actually want you to go and check out what you did for number 12. And what you should notice is that this is exactly the opposite of the answer to number 12. And the reason why is because we're using the opposite rational numbers. On number 12, we had 2.3, 2.6, and 2.8. And on this one, we have negative 2.8, negative 2.6, negative 2.3. Just the opposite. I do now realize, though, that this one should have been written as negative 2 and 4/5. Alright, so that's good. Let's move on to number 19. Alright, number 19. We've got 1.45, we've got 1.2, I can go ahead and convert that. I think I said 1.2, but that's the last number. It's 1.5, and 1.5 is the same. How much money is $1.50? It's 1.50. I could just write 1.5, but I'm going to annex a 0 here. I've got 1 1/3, and I don't think you know that one yet, so we're going to memorize what 1/3 is. Let's punch that into a calculator. 1/3 is the same as 1 divided by 3, and 1 divided by 3 is 0.3 repeating. So what we do in math is, instead of writing all those 3's, we just do a couple digits and then we put a line above those 3's. The line means it repeats forever, but we can't write them all. The number would be too long. So we're just going to call that 1.33. If you want, you can call it 1.33 repeating. I already had 1.45, and now I've got 1.2. I'm going to call that 1.20. They're all positive, so now I just need to think about the least to the greatest. Let's see if I can move this down. I really didn't give myself enough space here, so the best I can do is just to write it just like this. The least number is 1.20, so I'm going to write 1.2, comma, that's the smallest, and then 1.33. Except for we're not going to write it as 1.33, we're going to write 1 1/3. And then the next one I had 1.45. The last one's 1.5. A little messy, sorry about that. So let's check out number 20. Got 2 negatives and 2 positives. This one's not too hard, so the negatives would go on the left. The positives would go on the right. I could do the positives right now. This one right here is 0.50. And that's obviously not the biggest because 0.55 is a little bit bigger. So I took care of those right off the bat. Now I've got my negatives. So if I'm moving from 0 to the left, I would come to negative 0.3 first, because that's like 0.30, and then I'd keep going, and I'd get to negative 30.35. So that's going to be to the left. So if that's to the left, it's going to be the smallest. Negative 0.35 is the least number, then negative 0.3. So I'm going to the best of my ability, write it like this. negative 0.35, comma, negative 0.3, 0.5, and 0.55. Alright, so make sure you've got those answers. I know it's messy, I apologize for that. We've got two more to do. We've got number 21, which is going to be kind of quick, and then we've got number 16. Like I said, we're going to do 16 last. I'm going to put that up here for a minute. 21 reads, explain how to compare 0.7 and 5/8. So let's pretend this is one of those problems where you do 0.7 on the left and 5/8 on the right, and we're going to use an inequality sign. We're going to use this sign or this sign. But the trick is you're not sure what 5/8 is. So I'm going to show you how you could use a calculator to figure out 5/8. We'll memorize our eighths at some point, but right now you probably don't have that one memorized. So let's pretend you took a small quiz and it was worth 8 points. To figure out your score, you could simply go 5 divided by 8 is equal to, and you get this value right here. So I'm going to write that right below it, 0.625. And that seems like, since it's so much longer, it seems like a greater value, but it's actually not less than 0.7, because all you have to do to make it the same length is annex 2 zeros. So now we have 0 and this would be 700 1,000ths, and this would be 0 and 625 1,000ths. Well, 7 is greater than 6, so this is actually the greater value like this. Alright, so we're good there. It says explain how. I mean, if we wanted to put some words on it, we could say 5 divided by 8. Maybe I'll write that right here. This means 5 divided by 8. I think that's enough of an explanation. Alright, last one. This is going to be the longest one, and I'm sorry about that, but we have to challenge the tough problems sometimes. So we're going to do number 16. Remember, I'll remind you we're skipping number 18. Alright, number 16. The cool thing about number 16 is we've got two negatives, and we've got two positives. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to look at all these denominators and these fractions and stuff, and I'm going to say to myself, I don't want to really deal with finding common denominators and stuff like that. I mean, I'm kind of going to do that, but most of what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare everything to a half here. For example, I think I'll do my positives first. So just for now, I'm going to get rid of these negatives. And my positives, they're going to end up over here. This is going to be my a positive number, and this is going to be a positive number. And watch what I do. I'm going to notice that this would be equal to a half. 2/4 is equal to 1/2. What about this one right here? Is that equal to a half? 5/16? No, because 8 is half of 16. And since 5 is less than 8, that's less than a half. This is not equal to a half. This is less than a half, because a half would be 8/16. So if something is equal to a half and then something else is less than a half, the less than a half is smaller. So 5/16 would go here, and 2/4 would go here. So now I just have my two negatives to deal with, and I'm going to use a very similar strategy for this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cross off my positives because I already did those. And now I've got two negatives. I've got a negative here and a negative here. And I just need to think about which one would go first. So let's go ahead and think about that half strategy again. Put 0 right here, and remember we're looking for, we're working our way towards the left. We're going this way right here, and we're going to come to one of those numbers first, and then we're going to keep going and come to the second number. Well, which one would we come to first? Well, again, I'm going to compare them both to a half, except for this time it's going to be a negative a half. Let's go to the negative 3/8 first. Negative 3/8. Is negative 3/8 equal to a half? It's not, because 4 is equal to a half. So if you think about it, this would be negative 4/8, and if I'm going from 0, I would come to negative 3/8 first. Negative 3/8 would be before negative 4/8. So that could be right here. I'm just going to make up a number, make up a point, and that one could be right there. So now I need to think about where negative 65/100ths would be. Well, let's compare negative 65/100ths to a half by putting it in a fraction. Negative 65/100ths. Well, is that going to be equal to a half? It's not, because 50 is half of 100. So if I made this a half right here, it would be, I'm going to erase. If I made this a half right here, it would be negative 50/100ths. Well, if I'm coming from 0, I get to negative 51/100ths. I'd have to keep going to get to negative 65/100ths. So negative 65/100ths could be out here. Well, that's farther to the left. And again, my whole point is I'm trying to find the number that's farther to the left. So negative 65/100ths, which I'm going to rewrite as a decimal, is negative 0 and 65/100ths. That's farthest to the left. Then negative 3/8, then 5/16, then 2/4. Here's our answer for number 16. Now, I realize that that is super messy and fairly complicated. But, like I said earlier, we don't shy away from the hard problems. Okay, good job. You are done with page 62.